I really like moves like that. You have to be Magnus Carlsen to not feel like a fool.
It's Magnesium Carlsonian, world number 1, playing with the black pieces and absolutely whooping his opponent Tuan Minh with the white pieces. A Vietnamese sensation, not when you're facing down the goat. And some of the chess we see here, some of the moves you just wouldn't even think of. Magnus kicking off after pawn d4 with d5, solid as a rock. Lei goes knight f3, and Magnus now plays the nod null. That's a reverse London, very overpowered opening, and c4 now played, the most explosive move. Magnus offered the chance to gobble that c pawn, but declines. Says, no thank you Lei, my tummy is full, I just finished some delicious noodles. He plays the declined. Lei now copies with bishop f4. Is Magnus going to go knight f6, set up a massive Jenga tower on the f-file? No, boo. He plays bishop d6, but he means business. A few audience members bleat for the goat. Now we see knight c3, Lei nickering like a horse as he gets those ones out into the game. Many top professionals do that, and now pawn to c ships from Magnus Carlsen, solid as a rock, setting up the old party hat pawn formation, and queen b3 hits the pawn on b7, so Magnus holds it tender, and after rook c1, the queen being x-rayed, Magnus keeps it PG by stepping away from the gaze, offers the queen exchange. His hand stops shaking, loves getting the queens off the board, it's like an addiction for him. e3 is now played, knight f6, and after bishop e2, we see all 4 horsemen of the apocalypse enter the game. And now there are many more normal looking moves for white here, but none of them played. Lei goes for this queen a3, trying to stop Magnus from castling, tricky dicky, but Magnus now interrupts the fun with pawn a5, castles, and here comes truth with all her matter of fact, forcing the queens off the board. No more giving my kingy the runaround, says the black queen. And what can Lei do? Well, queen b3 pretty much forced to keep the pawn structure more normal, back on the square which it came from, tail between the legs, but Magnus doesn't yet castle. He goes pawn h6, we see knight d2, supporting the queen, maybe looking to build the big white centre, and now this is the moment. How many of us are playing castles here, getting the king out of dodge, connecting the rooks? Not Magnus Carlsen. He plays the move of king to e7, completely blowing the commentators' minds.
Ah, that's awesome. That's
I really like moves like that. You know, you understand why they're played when they're played, but to actually be the one to play them, you have to be Magnus Carlsen to not feel like a fool.
Now it looks risky to leave the king in the centre, but if white tries to retreat the queen, well then the b2 pawn drops, and that's a problem, especially when this diagonal is controlled by the bishop. So this queen's got to stay put. Instead we see rook fd1, the cannon's blasting, Magnus does likewise, and after h3, g5, gaining space, the queen exchange is on the way, forced now with a3, and Magnus lops them off the board. Knight recaptures, and the game is hotting up. But just before we get to the climax here, a quick word from the sponsors of today's video. A huge thank you to Akiflow. Imagine trying to play chess on 10 different boards at once. Absolute head spin. And then imagine doing the same thing with your everyday tasks. A personal email here, a work email there, a Slack chat suddenly kicking off, your to-do list piling up, and all you want to do is get things done and quickly. Well, that is where Akiflow comes in. Finally, someone has had the genius idea to combine it all in one place. One beautifully elegant dashboard and one universal inbox. And even better, you can then seamlessly turn your inbox into a task list and drag and drop these tasks into a space in your calendar. Suddenly, your to-do list and your actual time available are synced as one. And say you then want to share this time available, easy. Done within seconds, straight from your calendar into an email. You can also create a task manually, of course, as well as directly from your clipboard, you know, if you want to copy and paste something across. And from there, you can sort, filter, label, everything that you need in order to prioritize and get things done efficiently. And best of all, so much of this you can do within seconds by utilizing the amazing shortcuts and awesome command bar, a feature which lets you do things on demand really quickly, and it's constantly improving through this AI technology which is now getting built in. It's already massively helped me personally juggle all the different things going on: emails, chess channel, day job, family commitments. And as part of the sign up, you also get free one-on-one coaching in a call. So take control of your schedule, boost your productivity with time blocking. Try Aki Flow today using the link down in the description. So what does Magnus do here? He plows forward with pawn a4. He's got a ticket to ride, drives back the knight, and now we see knight b6. Pressuring the center, provocative. Do you want to advance the c pawn? Drive back the knight, lock the structure, then black's looking for e5. Lei decides not. He goes f3, looking for e4 soon, and Magnus preemptively drops back his bishop. We see a mini bomb cloud with king to f2. h5 now played, and h4 is the best positional response. We're gonna see why. Because g3 was played, not a good move. Is he a top grandmaster or a very naughty boy? Probably the latter, because g4 can now be played by Magnus, and you really want to be moving that pawn backwards, because now you're forcing access to the e4 square. This is how Lei does it, but he's given up this monster one to Magnus. Yes, got a passed pawn, but it's not so significant in this position. And now keep your eye on Magnus's pony. This is the magic we came for. We see knight c8 going on a maneuver. If you're going to play c5, surely do it now, but instead we see bishop f1. Now knight d6 comes, domination of the square. Lei decides now there's a moment to go c5, but here Magnus doesn't even play the most obvious move. You can jump in, dominate that square, but he goes for something trickier, so typical of his style: knight to f5, preempting e4, pressuring d4, and we're going to see his plan to break with e5. Knight e2 now played by Lei, and these are some of the top engine moves from stock Barnacle. Move the king out of the way, support with the rook, prepare e5 slowly. There's also an overpowered bishop move, but Magnus does it straight away here by pushing on through the center, but now takes. Knight hopping back to d7 is his point, can be met with knight f4. Strong continuation for white. We go to the back cave. Analysis mode. This wasn't played. This is how the game could go. White can actually liquidate, set up a nice knight cube, and should be doing okay here. Level game, but not played. Instead, we see an immediate e4, not taking the chance to bring the rook to the e file or knight to the f file. It's slightly different. This knight recaptures. We see knight takes on e5, knight 2 to c3, supporting its brother. Magnus centralizes, and look at the domination of these ponies. You can really see that Magnus has been practicing. This is actual footage of him in a Norway camp where they practice visualization of knight maneuvers. Really great way for super grandmasters to stay on top of the pony maneuvering. Magnus on top form here, and it forces an error, a blunder. King e3 is actually best, but not an easy move to play. Instead, we see the move of knight to d6, and it's suspicious. You can't quite put your finger on it at first. It's like this dodgy shirt, something a bit suspect about the clobber. What's the problem? Magnus highlights it with knight to b3. Excellent move, simple move. Hit the rook, and where's it actually going? The bishop's taking loads of squares. The knight it can't move, and the reason putting the knight here was a big problem is that if this knight had landed on b3, hitting the rook, and there was no knight on d6, it was back on e4, well now you could trade a pair of rooks, force black to recapture, then scurry away with the other rook, keep it safe, probably come to d1, supported by this knight. None of it possible though. Now that this one's here, the rook is trapped. What do we see? Knight takes on b7, just going for a randomization, but Magnus simply sidesteps. 2 pieces under fire. The knight is saved. The rook drops. I mean, that knight's got through one hell of a job there. Came all the way from b6, was it? Went on this incredible journey round the board. A tour de force. Wins the rook. Rook recaptures. And Magnus crashes through with check. It's brutal. If you step back with the king, well, that is an Arabian checkmate in the corner. What a move. Aladdin would be proud. We come back here. The king staggers forward and it just gets better, because after king b3 we see king f4. That one's staggering up the board, meandering like a drunk that's lost its way. Now we see f6 supporting the knight. h5 played, a kind of randomizer in low time to get the bishop to take, allow a check from f5, but Magnus stays on the most pertinent diagonal, and after knight c4, this is honestly just one of the most GOAT moves in low time pressure. This is what sets Magnus apart. Kramnik getting ready to do the procedure here, I tell you, because most people are capturing that knight, especially when you see there's a threat to take and win a pawn, because if you go king e6, captures, pawn takes check, then this drops as well, so taking just natural. But Magnus plays the top move of stock sturgeon, rook d8, and the point is that after knight captures here, you don't recapture, you chuck in a little Zwischenzug. Magnus whispers it as he does so. Many top guys do that, and what to do? The king's got to step back. It's the only square, or you could play knight e4 and get checkmated. So this one sensibly played, and when the rook is hit, the only reason you can then defend it and recoup your piece is that when you recapture, you cover the rook. I mean, that is just not easy to see on seconds or even in classical, really. Just incredible stuff. So the king now staggers all the way back from f2, get him hit back just after it came up the board. Magnus captures here. We see knight e2 hitting the rook, it saves itself. Now king e1, steps out the pin, rook c2, offers an exchange, and it forces resignation. I mean, pure dejection from Lee. He's just getting trounced, or Lay, sorry, the correct pronunciation. Now, if you go rook b1, then there's this simple tactic, or simple-ish, right? You take with check, pick up the rook. If you come this way, well, then you can simply intensify the pressure with stuff like that, and the a-pawn is ultimately running. And that's the problem with exchanging the rooks. The a-pawn soon runs once this rook moves. It's total domination. This is the final position. Magnus getting the job done. I will get to Alireza Grishchuk. Couldn't do so tonight, but I'll be bringing it soon. Hope you enjoyed. Smash subscribe if you did, and check out the video on screen for another epic game of chess. Cheers.